Hello, BookTube, and we've got a heat wave in the UK. Hey, get it, get it. So we're halfway through the year, and everybody's doing that mid-year tag. Is it mid-year freakout tag? Whatever it is, I can't remember the top of my head. I've got the questions on the computer screen, and let's just go. Let's start from the top. So, question one: best book you've read in 2025? Two biographies are sticking out at the moment. Oh, which one of them? So it's either going to be Hitler or Martin Luther King. I think it's going to be the Martin Luther King one. I think King A Life, I think it's called, by Jonathan Egg. This is a fantastic biography of Martin Luther. Obviously, it goes through the civil rights period with him, his objections against Vietnam, his problems with the FBI. The author also holds back no punches. He does criticise Martin Luther King from his adultery, and maybe his not really criticise his depression, but brings it out. He probably did suffer from depression. Yeah, that's a really, really fantastic biography. Probably just inches off the Hitler biography what's it? Is it Ian? Oh, I can't remember his name now. It'll come to me eventually. But best book so far has definitely been King Alive. Next question: how many books have you read this year? I have not planned this tag, so I think I'm between 80 and 90, something like that. That's how I mean, usually at this point, between 80 and 90. Next question. The best sequel you have read so far? Oh, this has been very much a non-fiction half of the year. I read a couple of trilogies. I didn't think much of them. I read Mark Lawrence's. I can't remember the trilogy's name, but it's like Dispel Illusion, stuff like that. I didn't think that much of that. I've done rereads of The Lord of the Rings, but I can't really add Lord of the Rings. It'd be the same every year. I'm trying to think of a sequel. Oh, probably the closest I'm going to get is there's a historian author called Dominic Sambrook, and he's got this series of books about life in Britain, starting from post World War II up until uh, Thatcher's government. So I think it's like 5 or 6 books, and I read the second one, or 5 or 6, whatever it is, and it's about the swinging 60s. I thought it was fantastic. So it was looking at what was happening in England, well, the UK, between 64 and 70 or something like that. So it's looking at Harold Wilson's government and how they coped with the Sterling crisis, and then Harold Wilson getting paranoid about his cabinet. It's also looking at the Beatles, the Kinks, the Stones, what was happening with fashion wise, what was on the telly. Great little. And Dominic Sandbook's also funny as well. I can see my dog is he's by me right here, and he's wearing to go. He wants to bark at the gardens outside. So you might hear him have a woof. Next one. So yeah, the best sequel, sorry, was White Heat by Dominic Sandbrook, and the next one is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. Ooh, mind you, I saw one that was out already. That I think it was the Tequila Wars by Ted Genoways. It's about what's his name? It's not Chavo Guerrero. I can't remember his name. The tequila fella, Jose Guerrero. Is it? It's something like that. Anyway, it's about how he amassed his tequila empire, and he was smuggling bottles of tequila over the U.S. Mexico border, and then how he eventually got involved with the uprising of the cartels, and then the Mexican Revolution happened, and the guy disappeared. So I think that probably something I really want to read, and it sounds really interesting. So that's right up my street. Next one, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Oh, okay. Uh, there's a new one about the space program, I think, about the Gemini program. I'm just trying to remember. I can't remember the author's name for the top of my head. I think it's Jeffrey Kluger. I think the Gemini program was before the Apollo program, so this is the footsteps to get to the moon and all the back and forth between the American space program and the Soviet space program, and all the dangers of space travel. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's really highlighted in the next 6 months for me. Next one is the biggest surprise. My brother suggested me to read How to Save Babylon by Safina Sinclair, and I was blown away. I thought it was amazing. My only holdback in this book was it's a lot of patois, that Jamaican patois, and I thought it was so. It's basically a autobiography / memoir about the author's life growing up in Jamaica and how a dad was a dominating presence, and how he tried to control her life. And it's also about a relationship with a mum and siblings as well. And then eventually going to the States and then becoming a world-class poet. I thought it was amazing. It's a really, really good book. If you've not read it, pick it up. Okie dokie. Next one. Favourite debut or new to you author? Glorious Exploits by Fedra Lenin. I thought this one was amazing. I think the bloke's Irish, and it's the way they talk. It's about I can't remember who lost what war. I think it's set in like Greek times, and there's the victors, and they're struggling to get back to normal, and they've got a bunch of prisoners of war, and there's two guys, and they're trying to do a play, but they're going to use the prisoners of war to do it. And there's that whole, why are you using them? They're the enemy and stuff like that. And it's comedic, and it's written in like an Irish way of speaking, because the author's Irish, instead of like your normal bog standard English. I thought this is really good, and it's really funny. So it's a really unique book. Next one, newest fictional crush. Really? Nothing. I haven't got a fictional crush, people. That's a bit sad, isn't it? Next one. Oh, I can see a pattern here. Book that made you cry. I've never cried at any book. There's sad books. There's stuff like The Story of the Heart by Rachel Clark, which is a sad book, but I've never cried at a book. Next one. Book that made you happy. Funny, maybe you can put that in there. I've reread several Bill Brysons this year. I love me Bill Bryson. A Walk in the Woods and A History of Nearly Everything. I've reread them last month, and I love Walk in the Woods. So I love Bill Bryson's sense of humour. So next one, the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. All my book purchases now are on my Kindle, which kind of like robs that beautiful thing, doesn't it? I remember for my birthday, my brother does pick me up the Penguin Clothbound Classics, and I read them in January. There's a what's it called? It's The Little Prince. I think it's called The Little Prince, isn't it? Yeah, it is Little Prince, and it's a kid's book. It's a thin volume, the Penguin Clothbound Classic, and it's yellow with stars on it. That's probably the closest I'm going to get for a beautiful book. Next one. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Does anybody need to read a book by the end of the year? Unless you're getting paid, unless you're an actual critic, does anybody need to read a book? I guess the closest thing I can get to that is I like to read the whole Bailey Gifford long list. I think Bailey Gifford is a non-fiction prize list, and it usually comes out in about October time. So I usually plough through about 12, 13 books before the shortlist gets announced. That's probably the closest I'm going to get to that question. Next one. How many 5-star reads this year? I think Goodreads, bloody star rating, isn't it? Okay, my favourite books are that I've already mentioned one of them. Oh, I've mentioned both of them, haven't I? So it's King Alive. I'd give that the glorious 5 stars. No, 6 stars, 7 stars. Here we go. And the Hitler biography by, I'm blanking on the man's name. I think it's Ian Kershaw. I think it is. They're the best 2 books I've read this year so far. Next one. What books do you want to read? Oh, reread this year. I've reread a few. I always read Mytholocan, so the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, the Silmarillion, early on, so January, February. That's when I do it. I've done a few Bill Bryson's, but coming up, it'll be next month, July. For the past 13, 14, 15, 16, whatever it's been, I've reread the Count of Monte Cristo every July. This is my favourite book of all time. I love the Count of Monte Cristo. So that's next month. A book you enjoyed with mixed reviews? Oh. All right, buddy, okay. I can't. That's a scam, the Goodreads 5-star system, wouldn't I? But I remember there was a one against Blood, Sweat and Pixels. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head, I'm sorry. But it's basically a history of 10 games. And I thought it was amazing. So it's basically a project management look of each game and what can go wrong. And they're fairly well-known games. Stuff like Stardew Valley, that's a really famous game. And I think one bloke made that whole game. One. And there's a few other it's a really good, interesting deep dive on the whole cycle of how they get a game to market. I thought it was really good. But there's a couple of naysayers to that book, but I don't agree to my book. I thought it was good. Next, 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't got Scooby-Doo. Hopefully the books I mentioned before, the Tequila one and Gemini, and hopefully some of the Bailey Gifford. And that's it, folks. That's my mid-year, I think it's freakout tag or whatever it's called. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll speak to you soon.